As the country watches President Obama and Congress debate over raising the federal debt ceiling, State Treasurer Bill Lockyer is planning ahead. I spoke with him earlier about how he intends to ensure there's enough cash for California. Treasurer Lockyer, welcome to the program. We know the problems that we're facing in Washington, but the question is, how will this affect California? What will be the impact if there's no agreement on raising the ceiling?
Well, the immediate impact, Belva, is that if the federal government has its credit rating go down, then that ripples into the credit ratings of states and municipalities all over the country, including California. There are lots of local entities that have their credit tied directly, just automatically, whatever the federal treasury credit rating is, they get the same thing. Now, our state is only secondarily that, but San Jose, Santa Clara, Oakland, Los Angeles, the list goes on of like 7,000 different agencies that would be impacted. So for them to borrow money, if they even can, if it doesn't freeze up, to borrow money to build a school or finish the highway or whatever, could become significantly more expensive. So that's one. The second problem is if they can't get it done in Washington and there's a failure to continue to make disbursements, school money, Medicare, health money, and so on, then that creates a cash flow problem for the state of California as well as others. And it means when I have to go out and borrow about $5 billion this summer to continue to pay the bills until the better revenue months come later in the year, I can't borrow at a reasonable rate. It makes it more urgent. It might even mean we'd send out IOUs if we're not able to get to the markets because of the dislocations that are national like that. So that's the second problem. Now, the third is if they do make a deal, and if they do make a deal, and it includes, trillions of dollars of budget cuts, then that might result in cash flow problems as well as individual hardships. We just had our budget adopted in California that mostly relied on spending cuts in health programs and workfare programs and other things, and schools, et cetera. Those miseries could be amplified if now there's a round of federal cuts that pile misery on top of misery.
So we hear also that could affect Social Security payments, and would that have any direct impact on California if that ended up being one of the outcomes?
Well, I don't think that's likely to happen because Social Security is one of the first payouts that they make, and there's some money even though there's not enough to pay all the bills. Mm-hmm. If it continued for a long time, then eventually that gets to be problematic as well. Okay. Now, that doesn't matter directly to California other than all the individuals that maybe be impacted would perhaps without income have to not pay for other consumer items and so on that affects our revenues, our economy. So there's indirect impacts as well as the individual ones.
So what can you as treasurer do for California?
Do a lot of praying, I guess. But, I talk to the congressional delegation. They know what the problems are and how we're trying to do our best to get the right outcome in Washington, D.C. After that, it's just, I'm the banker. So I'm the one that tries to make sure there's enough money to keep the schools and other programs going.
But what can you do actively to avoid the pinch being quite as hard as it could be?
Sure. Well, one thing I am doing right now, this federal problem has an August 2nd date. And we would normally later in August borrow $5 billion that I had mentioned to pay the bills for schools and others in the next few months. We're trying to do a bridge loan that we would get completed before August 2nd. So if they do have some problem, we'll already have our money in the bank and can pay the bills and can last for a while until we're impacted.
Okay, we have just a few seconds left, but can you speak at all about the California state budget? I mean, how are we on that? Do you expect some other problems coming from our own shortage still, not quite balancing the budget?
Well, you know, our policymakers decided that they would count on an additional $4 billion in revenues out of about $88 billion. That more than was forecast, hoping the economy would pick up, and then they wouldn't have to make additional cuts in the safety net or schools or other things. So if that works out, we're in good shape. If it doesn't, another round of cuts.
Another round of cuts.
Yeah.
All right, Treasurer Lockyer, thank you for bringing, I'm not sure.
All of this great cheer, yeah.
All this great news to us. Thank you. Well, there was some good news. If Treasurer Lockyer does borrow, there's good news from Wall Street. The rate for California will be the lowest it's been in years.